Previously on This Is Therapy.
I remember him clicking the gun to my head and the gun jammed. He beating me. My eyes are almost closed, for I can't see, and I know I'm telling my kids to come. They can't come to me, but in the background, I'm hearing Miss B and Miss S from upstairs say, "Call the police."
May 20th of 2019. Again, man, I was at one of my shops. This was a Monday, man, and I was at one of my shops cleaning, stripping the floors, and that's what I normally do on Sundays and Mondays. Just depend on which days I have more free time, man. Clean up the floors, whatever I need to be done or needed to be done in the shops. That's what I would do on Mondays. But every morning, since my girls were maybe fifth, sixth grade, man, I would always drop them off at school. And this particular Monday, man, they had a friend that had slept over with them for the weekend, man. So I actually dropped all three of them off at school that morning, probably about 7 a.m., man. Just a normal, your typical Monday. You know, like I said, I know for 8 to 10 years, man, that was my job. Drop them off, give them little nuggets in the morning, drop them off, man. Nothing out of the ordinary on this particular Monday. So as we going through our days, man, my wife is at work. I'm cleaning up the shop, man. My wife and I, and this is a pretty big part of the story that I don't really tell often, man, but I started telling it recently, and I see how much it helps people as well. But this particular afternoon, when my wife got off work, she calls, and her and I have a little disagreement. You know what I'm saying? We having one of those marital disagreements. And so we kind of get off the phone abruptly when she get off work. I know the girls about to get out of school and they will walk home. So I hung up during the disagreement, not even thinking anything about it. But when my wife calls me back about, man, maybe 3-4 minutes later, that's what really threw up a red flag in this situation. It's like, okay, why is she calling me right back after our little disagreement, right? And she tells me that my oldest twin, Kennedy, called her and said that something has happened to Kamdyn at school. And again, man, we all have the assumption that school is a safe place, man. I know it's dismissal time, so it, maybe it's some little, a little uproar between the kids or whatever. So she said, I'm gonna call you right back. I'm finna get the specifics. So she calls me back and tells me that Kennedy is hysterical and says that Kamdyn has gotten stabbed in the cafeteria at school. So, man, I'm like, hold on. Like, did you say grabbed? I know you didn't say stabbed at school. And at this point, man, I done dropped everything, man. I'm talking about the doors in the shop still wide open, man. I ain't locked the doors, no nothing. I'm in my truck, but I'm still talking to my wife, and I'm like, man, what do you mean stabbed? So I'm even still not even really in super panic mode, man, because my assumption is nothing out of the ordinary outside of maybe getting stabbed by a pencil or, something. But she tells me that a boy has stabbed her with a pair of scissors in her head in the cafeteria. And at this point, man, I lost it. I'm in my truck, man. I'm screaming down the street, man, but I'm also yelling at my wife almost like she did it. Like, what is going on with my baby? And at this point, man, she's making her way up there. Kennedy is calling her back and forth. So we hang up, man. I give her time to get up there. I'm trying to get to the school. So she calls me again and tells me, like, listen, Kamdyn has passed out. She got stabbed in the cafeteria. And I hear people in the background like, Kamdyn, wake up, Kamdyn, wake up. I hear my baby crying, man. I hear people talking about the ambulances on the way. So, man, now it done went from 2 to 10, you know? And so at that point, man, I really realized, like, man, this is serious business. Like, my baby has somebody almost killed my baby in the cafeteria of the school that I dropped him off at this morning. And another one of the pieces that's the saving grace to this, man, is that by the time I got on that side of town, the ambulance and my wife, they had already started transporting her to Mansfield Methodist. And I'm saying that, man, just to kind of put a bookmark for all my men, all my father figures, man. Like, a lot of where we are now probably does not exist if I have to stop at that school and lay my eyes on this boy. Because as a man and as a father, see, my wife was actually saw him. The boy tried to run out of the school, and you know, the SRO, the resource officer, had to chase him down. So it's one of those situations, man, where a lot of the saving grace and God's covering for me was having me go straight to the hospital. So again, that's a little bookmark for later on in the story. But like I said, they had informed me, like, I need to go straight to the hospital. I met them there. And bro, one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do is watch my baby get wheeled into the hospital in and out of consciousness. And just to tell you how fast I got there, man, my wife, because they wouldn't let her and Kennedy in the ambulance, man, my wife hadn't even made it, man. So it was just the ambulance, the medical personnel, and me. And as discouraging as it was, man, it was also encouraging to see her going in and out of consciousness, because I knew, you know, she was alive, she was conscious. So by this time, man, everybody started arriving at, you know, a couple of the teachers, coaches, and then my wife, my daughter, everybody started showing up to Mansfield Methodist. And after they took the initial scan of her brain, the doctor came out. And first of all, bro, we are met there by a chaplain. So again, if you in any part of any hood in America, you know what that chaplain mean, man. They've already put them on notice what kind of situation we dealing with. So that was scary in itself. But the doctor pulls my wife and myself into like a little waiting room, and he tells us that the scissors punctured her skull and punctured her brain, and has left blood clots on her brain. Therefore, if she does not have emergency brain surgery, she won't make it.
How old was she at that time?
My girls were 13, man. This little boy was 15 that stabbed him. And that's a great question, man, because I think that's a lot of times as parents, man, we take for granted, or we just have an assumption that our kids are always going to bury us. You know what I'm saying? You always have the, and I wouldn't call it an unhealthy, but it's a neglectful assumption that your kids would outlive you, right? And that's the harshest reality, I think, at that particular time, was the possibility that my 13-year-old could die. And that's tough, man. And it's tough because her 13-year-old sister is in the lobby, right? So at that point, man, they Methodist tells us, like, man, we either got to get her to the Children's Hospital in Dallas, or we got to go to Cooks in Fort Worth, man. And for us, man, we had always heard about Cooks, so we like, man, let's get her to Cooks. And then not even understanding what that took, man, to have to watch them wheel my baby out, strap her in the helicopter, and get her care flighted to Fort Worth is another piece that's unexplainable, man. Like, you know, every time I speak, every time I tell the story, man, there are no words to explain having to watch your baby, who was fighting for her life, man. Now they done put the trach in her, man. They put all the breathing tubes, everything in her. And to not know if she's gonna make the flight to Fort Worth, it's tough. It's tough, man. It'll take your mind and your thought process to a place that it probably should never go, you know. And at that point, man, I don't think I'd ever prayed so sincerely to God, like, I don't know what this looked like. I don't even know how we got here. But I need your help, right? And another little bookmark, man, I remember calling my dad. And telling him what was going on. And as I explained it, man, I thought maybe he went into shock and kind of hung up on me, but by the time I even finished explaining what was going on, man, my mom called me back. She like, man, what is going on? Like, she like, man, your dad just ran in the house, told me to get in the car. And man, she like, we already on the freeway. And man, you know, being in your 40s, bro. As men, we develop these egos, and we develop this pride to where we don't know how much we need our parents. And for us, man, we don't know how much we need our fathers. A trip that normally takes about 5.5 hours, man. Man, I think my pops got here in like 3.5 hours.
This is therapy.
Yeah, man. Of course, now we got to take the trip, which is a 20-minute trip, man. But it seemed like 2 days. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's just an awkward ride. You know, like by this time, man, a lot of our family who were local was on the way to the hospital as well, man. But when we arrived at Cook's in Fort Worth, again, man, we're met by 2 chaplains. There's a chaplain assigned to me, and there's a chaplain assigned to my wife. And bro, that's scary. That's scary, man. And I'm trying to stay in character, and I'm trying not to be rude to these men because I know this is part of the procedure, but I don't know what part of the procedure this is. So I immediately asked, like, no disrespect to y'all, but why are we being met by chaplain instead of doctors or, surgeons or nurses and they immediately put us at ease, man, like your baby made the flight. This is just protocol in these type of situations. So they walk us down. They walk us down a hall to the neurosurgeon, where, man, he's already prepped. He's already, he already laced for surgery. And all he does is come out in the hallway, man, and lay out paperwork. Like, listen, I need y'all to sign here, 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 and here. We're going to make an incision in your baby's skull that starts at the top of her skull, and it's going to make a question mark type angle behind her ear. We're going to have to remove her skull and try and remove 3 blood clots off her brain. And man, by the time we signed the paperwork, man, this cat just disappeared and was like, man, look, we'll be in touch. Don't know how long this gonna be. And man, I'm talking about like just disappeared into an operating room. They took us to a waiting room, man, and probably the most surreal moment was then, bro, because you really acknowledge at that point, man, like my baby is fighting for her life. This is not a surgery to fix a bone, or this is not a surgery to, this is not a typical surgery. Like, man, they are doing surgery to save my baby's life. And bro, by this time, man, now even the out of town family, everybody showing up, man. We probably 50, 60 deep at this particular point, man.
Not knowing what's finna happen.
Not knowing what's finna happen, man. The village just showed up and showed out, man. I got cats from my shops. I got, all of the homies, man. Like bro, the village was crazy. But there was one lady in particular, man, and her name is Lakeisha Martin, and her son was in the cafeteria when my baby got stabbed, and I guess he went home and he was so distraught that his mom was trying to figure out what's going on, man. Me and my wife had never met the lady, the kids. Like, obviously our kids knew each other, but bro, this lady shows up. She's like, man, I don't know where y'all were. She's like, man, I just went to trying to figure out information, seeing what was on the news or whatever the case may be. But she shows up, man. And from an angelic standpoint, man, she just kind of pulled me and my wife outside. Like, look, I know y'all don't know me, but God put it on my heart to find y'all and come cover your baby. And bro, when I tell you what ended up being an 8-hour brain surgery, man, this lady took her shoes off and walked around this floor of the hospital the whole 8 hours. And
Praying.
man, just praying, covering my baby.
What's her name? Keisha what?
Lakeisha Martin.
Thank you, Lakeisha Martin.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And I speak on that, man, because I truly believe that she created a cover. Because man, when this neurosurgeon, and what we found out later on, this is one of the best neurosurgeons in the country. This man done been on Dr. Oz. He done, you know, and at this point, bro, like, I know it's 75 people in this waiting room. But he comes out, man, and he pulls up a seat directly in front of me. And my wife and my daughters and my people, everybody's around, but he looking at me like, man, your baby's brain is beat up. Your baby's brain was swollen. There was a lot of bleeding. He said that her brain was bleeding and so much brain fluid that he had to call in another surgeon to help to stop the bleeding. And because of the blood clots on her brain, it had caused her to have a massive stroke during surgery.
At 13.
A massive stroke at 13. He said that this is the type of stroke that an 80-year-old wouldn't have. And told us that she is minute to minute. And bro, that's tough. Like, I've never heard anybody say minute to minute. I've heard people say day to day, and man, that was really the first time, and really probably the only time in the whole situation, man, where all of the air was out of me, man. You know what I'm saying? It emptied the faith tank. It emptied the encouragement tank. It emptied, you know, all of that stuff is on E.
Yep.
And man, I kind of go outside around the corner, man, and that thing just take my legs out, man. I'm in the floor. Like, what is going on, God? Like, man, did he tell me my baby was a vegetable? Or, you know, like, it was so hard to decipher what he was saying because there was nothing positive. There was nothing encouraging. Like, man, he just told us that she was alive, but again, we didn't know if that was in a vegetative state. We didn't know, you know, what her, and he couldn't really tell us, you know, neurologically where she is. Where is her brain? What is her brain function? Or what effect did the stroke have on her? Or, you know, so man, for me, bro, like, that was probably the toughest moment for me. But again, it was my pops. Came outside, man, and he picked me up and he like, look, I heard the same thing you heard. We all heard the same thing you heard. But what I didn't hear is that our baby was dead. So he like, man, we through crying. She out of surgery. And if we don't know anything else about our baby, is that she gonna fight. And we gonna fight with her. And at that particular moment, man, without even knowing the father figure movement, the father figure brand, all of that stuff was birthed, man, because now it even magnified the importance of our role in our children's lives, man. Like, it's my wife's and my mother and my mother-in-law. It's all their job to nurture these kids. It's their job to make sure that they are covered and fed and feel good. But in times of adversity, man, what we put in them and what we give to them, that's when our umbrella starts. That's when that covering starts. And all my dad was telling me, man, was like, listen, we put the fight in them. So, you know, if nothing else is gonna happen, man, Kamdyn gonna fight, because she know she got something to fight for. And man, that's exactly what happened, bro. Like, they put her in the ICU, man, and I'm talking about with every tube, a feeding tube. There was a drainage tube for her brain. There was a pressure tube coming out her head, man. Like I said, they had removed her part of her skull because her brain was swelling internally on her spine. So they had to remove her skull in order to let it externally swell. Man, so she's without part of her bone on her brain, man. She's completely paralyzed on her right side, man. I'm talking about like that face leaning, that, you know, man. So just to look at her in the ICU, bro, it's the most horrific scene, because again, man, we don't know if she brain dead. We don't know the full effect of the stroke. You know what I'm saying? So now you realize, looking at her in the ICU, you realize, like, okay, like, I see why he's saying minute to minute. Like, we actually communicating with the nurses where they are every second watching vital signs, man. You know, it ain't like one of them deals where they walk off and like, no, it's around the clock. Like, when they change shifts and especially in these pediatric ICUs, man, like, man, there is no walk away and come back, or like, nah, man, they're in the room with her
minute by minute,
around the clock, minute to minute, man, watching every monitoring system known to man. You know, that's from her brain function, that's from her vital signs, that's from every vein and blood vessel. And like, man, it's truly a scary situation, man, to sit there and minute by minute watch your child fight for her life, bro.